I feel like I'm always identified as this really musical person because this is what we do. Mm-hmm. And it is, I recognize a skill that I have. But I did not grow up really doing any types of lessons or anything. Didn't do piano lessons. I did sing. I mean, who didn't this was the late 80s, 90s. Like every Disney princess song is just like a part of my being. So did, sing. And then probably about through middle school joined like a local choir and learned to read music. And I was in marching or school band for a while. But it just came really naturally and really easy. I didn't really think anything of it. I was really big into sports. So that really just took up all of my time and thoughts. And but music was just kind of there. I enjoyed it. I didn't really realize that hearing something and just automatically knowing it was a gift. I don't know. Music was always there. And then was going to church camp, and the church we went to was always about special music. Do you want to sing? Will you sing special music? The time in the service that was allotted for special music.
Okay.
So I would go to camp and they'd be like, please, you have to do special music. So I was like,
they'd
whatever.
be asking you this?
Yeah.
Okay.
The leadership
Will you
people.
come on stage and do special music?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
this is small town church, right?
Small town. Yes. So not leading worship, your special music. So I go during the time that they've carved out for the people to go practice special music.
Okay.
Well, lo and behold, the person who was playing the piano was this person. Yeah. So that's kind of how we met.
Yeah. Special music.
Special music.
There was special music playing.
So he was playing and I would be singing.
Well, you are very musically talented. And so, talent is something people have, whether, they work on it or not.
Right.
So it can be sitting there and you can never use it, and it's there, extreme musical talent. And if no one ever acts upon it, then you never gets developed.
Right. Okay.
Probably there's someone that lived that could blow away the 100-meter record, but they never, got the opportunity or developed that talent. So,
developing a talent is actual work.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So that's, for lack of time or maybe desire, you could have really, an instrument if you wanted to, because you were really quick on piano. And if anything was ever slightly difficult, you didn't.
I'm like, I'm done.
And I'm thinking, man, there's lots of people who would want to be able to be at that level that you're already at, after months and months of work. So, that's, I always saw that, and you were already, an adult by that time, but you had, and you still do have that musical talent that's sitting there if you wanted to develop it.
One day.
Yeah.
I don't ever receive a lot of joy from sitting still.
Yeah.
I do when I'm
at
the very end of energy, then I'm I'd like to sit still and watch TV. So I don't gain a lot of enjoyment from the practice of sitting still.
Now the vocal stuff, that's different because you are the instrument if you're a vocalist. So that's something you don't really have to, in the same way, you have to learn the instrument of piano or the violin or something. You have to get that instrument and get familiar with it and hold it and play and learn the physicality of that instrument. But vocal is, you are the instrument, so it's there. So that's something that you've been working on your whole life without maybe even knowing it. So that something like that can be a natural talent that can be developed to an extremely high level without ever having a lesson. You just hear people, well, I just can do it.
Because they're doing it every day in the shower and walking around this,
Right. So you can't do that with piano. You can't say, okay, sit down and play the piano. Someone who's never played.
Right.
They can't, I can just do it. They can't. They've got to have some sitting down and learning some things first. But the voice is different because you are the instrument.
That is such a fascinating
And there's times when I did start to learn some things, and I love to learn. So I did when I was in those environments of this girls' choir. when they would talk about techniques, I loved hearing and learning. But I could think back like, oh, when I was singing in my room to this cassette tape, trying to sound like this Broadway version of this whatever, I'm like, oh, I could make my voice technically do what they're now giving me the language for. So I remember thinking like, oh,
made the connection.
I already do that. I already figured that out.
Yeah, like most voice lessons with females, they have to be taught how to go into their head voice. The head voice is like the, oh, when they flip over, But you just already did that.
But I remember working on it, thinking,
I already do this. Yeah.
I like recognizing pretty young, like, oh, this is a challenge to go from here to here vocally.
The break in your voice. Yeah.
And so then listening to everything around me and thinking, how can I make that adjustment smoother, easier? And I would figure out and I think this is actually from athletics. It's a whole body experience. So to jump into your head voice, I realized is like hitting a softball is not about your arms, it's about your hips. Right? The force and the power comes from another area that you don't really expect. So I think it was like that training I really understood. I understood how to like make my body do what I needed it to do. So I realized, oh, if I push with support through my, what I would say core, but it's your diaphragm if you're here getting a voice lesson. If I could support through that and support with air and then get more air going, and then also like if I would warm up my vocals, and then that process would be easier. Well, I didn't really realize what I was doing as I was figuring that out.
Crazy. My point is that the vocally, you're already, where you need to be as far as singing.
Right. I did not really have a lot of training.
Yeah, but you've had some.
Yeah.
And even without that, you're vocally, at the top, I think. And you can do different styles.
Thanks.
Well, you are. Piano, you're not.
I know.
But you could be.
I know.
You could be.
I don't want to be.
Yeah. And so I think, vocally you're there and being able to copy the different styles, being a Disney princess, or singing Handel's Messiah. That's a different style. Or singing blues, or singing country. Where I noticed that you really had a great ear is when the details, because people can hear a song, but they don't hear details in a song, like a little woo or a little something somewhere. Even the little bitty things, that I wasn't even noticing, in a song. We were listening to rock and roll and stuff, but picking up all those things, that shows an ear, that shows an ear.
And an attention to detail.
Yeah, hearing the little things, the little how you would end a phrase, just doing it exactly. It would be like if you were being a mimic, and you're impersonating someone, and you did exactly how they would say, even the timing and everything. It's that kind of an ear that hears the details. You always hear that, the genius is in the details.
You know what the interesting thing on that? So I'm going to chime in with my.
Okay. Yeah.
So in art school, I learned that learning to draw and learning to accurately represent something was much more connected to learning to see
perception.
Than it was your skill, your dexterity, and your skill with your hand, because you don't see. And then you start drawing with your left hand and looking at everything, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm seeing so much more. And you're learning to see.
Yeah.
And so much of music is hearing. It's the same,
yeah.
I think, with all like artistic outlets.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even with athletics too, any type of physical, it's about the details.
And the more, like, it says in the word, he who has ears, let him hear. Well, everybody had physical ears.
Right.
They were all hearing that.
Right.
But there's another hearing that's a perception, that's an inward perception. And it's the same with everything, with music. And I find, even at 50 years old, I'm still getting better and better, because music is one of those things you can do when you're an old man and whatever. And you can still get better. If you play basketball, you're going to get worse and worse. You just are. The goal is higher every year when I get out there. So I find the more I understand, the better I get on everything. The technique. Like, I have struggled at years as a young man in my 20s when I should be able to play this Chopin etude, flawlessly. And I could play it really good, but now I have more understanding of technique of the hand okay. And just that click, I could get technical here, but just that click of an understanding unlocks everything, and it's easy. So this particular etude I'm thinking of now is easy instead of a challenge. Just sit down. So in every aspect, I think, where you have understanding, it makes things easier. It really does. Whether you're doing a technical thing or you're trying to memorize music, when you have understanding of chords and that unlocks everything. It's not the work. It's the understanding that unlocks everything. So
no.
So I gave my here was me and my musical experience up to me.
So yours ended with some special music and you going on stage, and then there's this
so
dreamy gentleman
my kind of beginning is I for a long time didn't realize that my ear and my understanding of hearing music was anything special. I thought everyone could do it. My mom bought a piano when I was a toddler, and she played, and I heard the notes, and I remember placing them all, and they were like my friends. I could hear what the notes were. And each one had a different personality or feeling, each chord, everything.
So that's crazy. That's unique.
Yeah, that is. And that's something that I did not earn.
That's right.
I didn't work to get it, so I take no pride in it. No, no, nothing.
Yeah.
That's just something, God gives or he doesn't. And there are others, Beethoven had that as well. I'm not comparing myself to the great, Beethoven. But that's... to have that sort of ear to understand, it's like...
You just hear a note and that's A sharp or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Or A sharp, I don't even know.
Yeah, or even the chord. And it doesn't feel like I'm listening to frequencies of tone, like higher or lower. It feels like I'm listening to feelings or personalities or color. Not really color. People say colors, but it's not a color. It's just, that's a word we use sometimes to try to express to someone else.
You likened it to like friends. Like, this is my dad's voice. This is my brother's voice.
Right. Like, I hate playing in the key of D sharp minor because it's so, it's not just sad. It's hopelessness. The key of D sharp minor is the most hopeless key that you can play in. So I don't want to play, a song just because of that feeling, I don't want to feel that way. Maybe, in fact, I only will play those preludes and fugues that are in D sharp minor if I'm in a really good mood, because then I can kind of, not associate too much with it. Yeah. So certain keys are, and that's why I hate if someone changes a key. Because it's like, it's in this key and it's right. It's good. I've learned it this way. This is that person, this key for this song. And then they want to change the key. And I'm like, no, that's not right. It's more of an annoyance.
You want to know an
You're
area
laughing,
when we need marriage counseling is when I need to sing a song and I'm like, change the key. And he's just like... He'll do it, but I'm like, I can tell the internal struggle.
Yeah. So someone that can't do that doesn't have that ability, will have an easy time changing the key, but not me. And I think it's something I could have developed if I want to. I just don't want to, Anyway, so we go back to from the very beginning.
I want to hear a few more. Like, what are some of the other personalities in these notes?
Oh man,
are there others that?
Yeah, the key of E is heavenly. It just sounds like on another spiritual level. It just sounds, and Liszt, in fact, when I read that, Liszt said that he was, heavenly. There's another, I think he said B, I'm not sure, but those two keys just sound like they're on a higher realm.
That's crazy.
They kind of sparkle. They have just kind of a breathy, it's not,
ascended.
Yeah.
That's
those
crazy.
Two keys sound
Transcendent.
That way. D, the key of D major, is like the happiest key you could ever. G is also very happy, but D is very sunny and bright. It's just. In fact, I did a little study. I feel like the Bach preludes and fugues kind of go through the birth, life, death, resurrection of Christ.
Really?
And the key of D is where the resurrection is. So I don't know if Bach intended that or if anybody, but it's very interesting to me that you go through the keys. Like the first prelude is like his birth. It's a little.
Is it intended to be his birth from Bach?
I don't know. I have no idea.
But this could be a whole podcast in and of itself.
I would love to hear
I'm not
that
really
at some
interested
point.
in Bach's music, but this is fascinating.
But his
That's
favorite,
crazy.
he was a Christian. His favorite passage he marked in his Bible was, I can't remember where it is. It's in one of the early books, but it's David marking off the musicians, and it's 12, 24, 12, or it's 12, 12, 12, 12. I can't remember if it's 24 or 12. But that's the basis of music. There are 12 tones, and you can have a major and minor for each one. 12 major, 12 minor. And he marked that as like the foundation of it didn't, of music or something, or this should be what we and then he wrote the 24 preludes and fugues in every key. I think he knew something. And I think he knew that 12 was kind of the number that stood for God's perfect nature and government, and then he expresses that in his people. And so you have 12, because there were 24. There were 24 elders in David's court, right? And when you read the musicians, they're all 12, 12, 12, 12, or I can't remember if it's 12 or 24, but it's some multiple of that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And
12
it's
tribes.
no accident that there's 12 tones.
Yeah, 12
It's
disciples.
also no accident that within that 12, you can have a key in each one, and each one's going to have 7 notes for the scale, for the major key and for the minor key. So you have 7 for each one, which is another. And 7 is part of the creative when you write. It says 12 is not creative. They're just there, the notes. They're just stagnant. They're just sitting there. But within those 12, you can find 7 on each key. And then you can write music in each one of those keys, all 24. And that's the creative. It's a process that you draw and you pull out. Kind of like, in Genesis, where he's, restoring the earth and creating. There's a progression. He could have done it all in one day, but he did it as a progression. So 7 is kind of the creative process of completion, And then within that, you have a chord on each one of the 7 of the scale. Okay, whatever key you're in. And guess how many notes are in a chord? 3. There's 3. So that, to me, that's, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Father's the base, the root, what you call the root. Son is in the middle, and the Holy Spirit's the 5th. So if you take the 3rd of the chord, the middle, whether that's in a raised or lowered position makes it a minor chord or a major chord, a happy or a sad chord. In its lowered position, it's a minor. In its raised position, it's a happy major chord.
And the middle is the Son?
That's the middle.
The
That's what I'm talking about, the middle. You have the 3 notes of the chord. If you lower the middle one, it's sad sounding. If you raise it, it's happy. So I just kind of think of, the Son coming down. He was a man acquainted with our sorrows and grief. So there was sadness, the cross, some sadness there, okay? But then it's raised. And guess what Bach did at the end of every minor key?
What?
He raised the 3rd on the last chord. Kind of a resurrection. So
he would never leave it in its
he would never leave it
state.
Minor. He would raise it. In his first book of Preludes and Fugues, he raised every one of them at the end of the minor key. He would raise it. And if I could play it for you, you would hear that and go, oh, okay, I recognize that kind of sound. It sounds sad all the way through, and then at the end, you have a major chord, a resurrected raising up. So of the 3. So you have 12, 7, and 3 mathematically encoded in music. No one created that. Well, someone did. Man didn't say, oh, let me take these frequencies there. And let me tell you something else that's cool. You take one note. Inside that note are called harmonic tones. Like if you play one tone, there are like 16 other tones that are ringing above that tone that I hear a lot of them sometimes, but most people just hear that one note. Well, guess what those tones are? They have the octave, they have at the bottom, they have the chord in the middle, the thirds, and at the top it has a scale. That's how all music is created. The octaves at the bottom, chords in the middle, the strumming guitar, and then the vocal on the top sings scales. So within every note is the DNA for music itself.
This is nuts.
So when Schoenberg came along and invented the 12-tone row, which many people go, oh, this is great. I think it's just blasphemy. Because what he did is he took the structured music, which has a mathematical, there's a reason it sounds good to our ears, right? He took all the 12 tones, put them in a bag and shook them up and then just throws them out on the table, and whatever order they come, you write down, and that's music.
It is not music.
That's pretty much.
So is
what
this
it
like
is.
the John Cage 21st century, like whatever?
John.
I mean, John Cage is different, but this type of.
Sort of. He still had some tonality. He kind of got weird, really weird. But Schoenberg was the one who really, and Stravinsky, the 12-tone stuff. It's like taking this house, taking it all apart, and then
demoing it and saying, "This is our home."
Yeah, and saying, "Oh, this is beautiful. Let's come listen to it."
Yeah, I'm rusty on my art history, but there's a whole movement.
I
that
did a little
corresponded
research
with that.
on Schoenberg, and he was an occultist.
Was he really?
And his matrix, called the 12-tone matrix, he got from the occult matrix, that they would take 12 and do kind of occulty, chant stuff with it, and they would, all that mess. We don't need to get into that, but that he kind of put that in music, and nobody knows that. And we have people very talented people going to concerts, listening to that, junk. Anyway.
I think sometimes because we feel like challenging the known structure is supposed to be like intellectual or.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there is a mathematical.
I don't get it because I only like music that I like. I like hearing all of this stuff. I don't know all of this stuff. But I know what resonates for me when I listen to music. So if I just am like, I think people are lying if they're listening to that and they're like,
let me tell you something else that'll blow
I just think they're like,
they want to be cool. They want to be in the cool club.
I'm like,
cool
I
crowd.
can't.
Yeah, it's kind of, to me, classical music was kind of like, even Beethoven, who was a humanist, God even worked through, him, and created some of the greatest music ever, and ones around him a lot. Bach is the only Christian composer that I can think of that was really great, and he's above them all.
Is he?
In fact, any musician will tell you he's like up there, and then everybody else. Then you have your Beethoven and Mozart, but Bach is king as far as music goes. At his deathbed, there's a site I found that says all the last words. I don't know why they have the last words of all of these people. Bach, he said, "Don't cry for me. I go to where music was born."
Wow.
That's what he said.
Come on, man.
And then there's another famous composer that was clutching scripts of Mozart, at his deathbed. That was his thing to hold on to, was Mozart's man's music. Stravinsky, it's either Stravinsky or Schoenberg, the 12-tone I was talking about. At his deathbed, he rose up and he said, "Harmony," and then he died, which is really weird because his whole life was against harmony.
His work, I guess.
His whole work, his work was 12-tone was to destroy harmony. But then he woke up and that was his last words was harmony.
Wow.
Yeah. So something
He probably heard it.
he might have heard it. But something else will blow your mind. If you take tone is just a frequency. Whatever tone you want to pick. But somehow, if you put them in an order, like if I went on the piano and I played 4 notes, they're not connected in any way. They're just 4 different frequencies. But if I play them, in a musical way, somehow our brain connects them. They're not really connected. I play a tone, it's gone. I play another tone, and it's gone. So where's the music? It's created inside us when we listen to it. Because they're just tones.
I wish we could get your reaction.
Well, no, it's getting my reaction here too.
They're just tones. That's all they are. If I played several different, like if I went out, took a hammer and beat on several different objects, there would be tones. They would be, and they're not connected. Even if I tried to play them one right after another, but for some reason on an instrument, when we play tones and we connect them, sing I don't have my voice anymore. Just sing a scale. Da, 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 da. Or I can kind of do it. Da, 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 da. Those are just tones, and they're each separated. But in our minds, humans, we hear it, and it connects it, and it speaks to us on a soul level. I don't know how it does that, but it
does.
Well, it's why do
magical.
when you're sad, you listen to sad music, or you're happy, you listen to happy music, or
Why?
you're sad and you listen to happy music to shift your.
Why does a minor chord sound sad? You don't know anything about music, right? As far as, and I'm not trying to
no,
tell you anything.
Guilty as
But if I
charged.
played a minor chord and a major chord, you could hear the difference. You say, "Oh, that's a sad chord.
Yeah.
That's a happy chord."
Yeah.
But you don't know. But for some reason, it connects on a soul level, and the frequency between that one change note, that third, is so small. But you hear that. You can tell. No one taught you that.
No.
And you can somehow inside us, it makes a soul connection when we connect these notes in a musical way. So the music is not actually.
Well, and wasn't in the Nazi camps that the Jews were in, wasn't that one of their tactics? Was they took the tone and then they
Well, they wanted to lower A440. So I think God has a hand. Satan doesn't own every, he's the prince of the power of the air.
What is A440?
He doesn't own. I'll get to that. He doesn't own, every single thing. No, God had made Bach. God wrote music through Bach, Beethoven, the great masters of the Renaissance period. Whether they love Jesus or not.
Well, even the rocks cry out. I mean, if God created
there is still, it still comes through. It still comes through. And I think God even had a hand in A440. So A440 is the standard by which we tune all our instruments. Okay. I don't know where we decided. You could look it up. I don't know if there's any definitive thing, but somehow it ended up being A440.
And it has been for a long time.
And that's just what we use. Okay. And it's the standard by tuning everything. All the instruments are tuned to A440. Because if you tune A, then you go from A, and then you go out and measure all the other.
Okay.
No, you measure from one standard.
Okay. Yeah.
And I even think God had an indicator, because every key is where it should be. That sounds stupid, but every key, like if you changed A440, I would be wrecked for the rest of my life. I couldn't change back. But every key is where it should be according to A440. And if the Nazis wanted to lower it, to change it to some other, because I think, just like everything else, anything bad is a corruption of something that used to be good, right? So I think even in music, there's a soul connection. Everyone's listening to music 24/7. If you lowered that and changed the tone, it would do something on a soul level. I don't know what it would do to people.
Wow.
But there's a standard, and interesting that it's 440,
They changed it though, and they would play that lower frequency
in the camps.
Wow.
Have y'all ever read the creation myth in the Silmarillion, Tolkien's Silmarillion?
Yeah, and I don't think it's completely myth. I think there's a lot of
there could be a lot of truth in there, but the way that Melkor, whoever the Satan figure is in there, and he starts sewing in a discordant note into the song that the creator was singing. Oh. It's crazy.
Yeah. So another they call an interval. They call the devil's interval. It's a
that's an actual that's a technical term.
If I could play it for you, you would hear and go, "Oh, that's very dissonant." Dissonant means two tones that go. It's like the most dissonant tone between two notes is a diminished fifth or an augmented fourth. They call it, but it's the same distance. And you play those two tones. They're called a tritone. Those two notes, and people would avoid that because they thought, it's the devil's interval, whatever. But what's very interesting is to make a 5/7 chord on piano, you have to have a tritone in there, and 5 goes to 1. So 1 is the home key. It's a very important chord. 1, it's home. It's like return. Okay. It's like the return. It's like a redemption. It's going back to home. You start on it, but you do all this stuff in the middle, and then you end on it.
So you close the circle of the...
You close the circle of 1. 5 has the strongest connection to go to 1. 5, the number of grace, I guess is what. But 5, and if you add the 7th in there, which also the 7th is in the harmonic series that we talked about, you cannot make the 5/7 is the strongest chord to lead back to 1.
Really?
Yeah. And you can't make a 5/7 chord without using a tritone in there. It's what they call the devil's interval. So it kind of makes me think of, it is dissonant. God's not a dissonant God, but he will use dissonance to bring consonance. Consonance is still water, is two chords that harmonize. They harmonize. So the 5/7 chord has that devil's interval in it. And he used it to
bring us back to
one. Yes.
That's nuts.
So it is. And I have no paper for this. It's just stuff my mind thinks of and notices. So, yeah. So, I mean, did God do that? Did he use something very dark and sinful to bring us back to God? Yes, he did.
Yeah. Does the devil report to Yahweh in the book of Job? He does. He's
Where have you been? Answers. Got to answer.
He's accomplishing a purpose.
Yeah. So I love and the more I understand these things, the easier it is for me to play music, and the more relaxed, because it used to be a job to me. Work. Got to be good. Got to be the best. Got to be, you're only as good as your last performance. I was even working on being in the Van Cliburn competition, which is one of the most prestigious, classical competitions ever. Yeah. Hated it.
Really?
Yeah, because it was a job and it was work. And so I hate that I see all now looking back, all of these really talented people from Russia, China. I don't know why the most talented, were there from Russia and China, but it just seemed what it was. And I'm just this, lazy American showed up, didn't start working hard till I got in college. And they have so much talent, but they're same way. It's just rigor. It's just a job.
It's a drive to be the best.
And the thing, music, which is supposed to be this wonderful, enjoyable you perform, but it's always for what Bach said, to the glory of God first, and then for the refreshment of the soul was the second thing. But there's no glory to God, and there's no refreshment, of their soul. Only like duty and achievement.
Wow.
So I hate, that was the classical world I lived in.
Wow.
So I at one point I said, I hate this. I don't want to do this.
I know. We started hanging out, and I was like,
yeah.
Have you ever heard this song? I was like, corrupting the classical mind.
So we would get, and I have to say this too, a lot of the classical community will look down on rock and roll or pop music. And I agree that some of it should be looked down on. But there's a lot of it that is really good, that has really talented musicians. And some of the things these guitarists played in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s are on the level technically of a Van Cliburn piano competition winner. But they're not recognized as such. They're kind of looked down upon, as an artist or whatever. But we started listening to, the Beatles. So I just devour the Beatles. I listened to every Beatles album. We systematically, we'd get done teaching our piano lessons. We'd go to Walmart. This was in the day when I could stay up past 9:30. We'd go to Walmart. We would buy CDs, and we would just pick a band, and then we would start to finish. Right. Well, hold on. We're picking out CDs, and then the guy's cleaning the floor. We got to move out of the way. So yeah. So we listened to the whole thing. Just
we would just pick a band.
That
and
was
then
your evening. It wasn't watching a movie. It was like listen to this.
No, we'd go buy CDs, and then we would drive around, and we would listen. Not like in an entire night. We would get pretty far, start to finish, just their entire body of work.
Yeah. So I'm listening. Paul McCartney, one of the best songwriters that ever lived. Really. John Lennon, not so much to me, but Paul McCartney, yes. And that's something else, because within music there are talents.
Yes.
Within it.
There's that's when we started recognizing the gift of musicianship, the gift of songwriting, the gift of storytelling, the singing, you can really break it down. What is it? And that's where we started almost scientifically. And I don't think we realized we were doing it then. Mm-hmm. But desiring to answer the question, why do we like this? Why have generations why are there 30 years of people who love this? Why does my grandmother love it, and why do I like it? There's got to be a deeper reason than this is just a good song. Yeah. What are these artists hitting on that have caused so many people? Why is this song so good that Billy Joel can get a completely packed Madison Square Garden and everybody knows every word and is having the best time of their life?
Right.
That's
night after night after night after night. I'm like, there's got to be something more to this song than just, I don't know, it's a good song.
Yeah. So you take, again, Paul McCartney, his voice. He sounds like a guy down the street that sings pretty good, that I could go down and listen to. He plays guitar. Not, he can play chords. He plays bass pretty good.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
But as far as, musical, where's the talent? The songwriting that he would finding a melody that fits within just an octave, just a few notes that everyone can sing, that everyone remembers with words that stick in your mind. How do we do that?
Right.
You could take these other musicians who are considered, the top two. They can't do that. They can't write a song like he did it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like I wouldn't say. So we could say Paul McCartney is a great songwriter, and so is Willie Nelson. But I think Willie Nelson's gift is the storytelling.
Yeah.
Because you can't as easily sing along to a Willie Nelson song. His meter, his delivery, his artistic storytelling, I think then sets him. This is like breaking down like the songwriter and the storyteller. Yeah. To me, those are two different skills.
And there's something else with Willie, though. He did those things, but his voice.
He's a unique. Yeah.
His voice. There's no one else that's had a voice like that I've ever heard. And if it were a color, it would just be red. It would just be this kind of orangey red. I know his hair was like that, but just the sound of the timbre of his voice is what carried the song. And so that's why he was able to sing other people's songs, weren't a hit, but then he made them a hit because the song he was singing, his voice, his instrument. And it wasn't that he could go all over the place with his voice. He couldn't. He kind of just talked a lot of times when he sang. But the timbre is kind of like the Bob Ross effect,
Yeah.
His voice, he's putting you to sleep. Something about his talent. I think, yes, he was a great singer, but if you were to pick one thing that was his most talented musical aspect, it was that voice. Where it's just the part that's just magical that you can't explain. It just is,
He told a great story too.
Yeah.
Some of his stuff that isn't as well known. You're just like, and then of course for our podcast, I did a ton of research. So just hearing his thought process of how he came up with some of these ideas is just like, this is a gift.
So if we go back, I got off a tangent there, but when I'm a kid, I'll go kind of quickly, but. So I'm hearing all the notes, and kind of learning, hearing them. And it's like as soon as I go to the piano and I don't know the piano, but I play it. Oh, I know you. I know. And I start to learn that way. So I take, classical lessons. But I, at an early age, like maybe 8 or 9, it was kind of neat because I kind of did what I was going to do later on, like decades later. It was this... piece on a Christmas album. This guy Andre Previn was playing an arrangement of Hark the Herald Angels Sing on the piano, which is just a Christmas album, mostly just choir stuff. But I heard the piano on there, and I wanted to learn it. And I couldn't really do it physically yet, but I wanted to know what it was. So I would go in the other room, put the needle down on the record, that's how old I am, LP, and then listen to it, and then lift it up, and then go to the piano, and then write down, what the note was. And then I would go back, walk into the other room and do it again. I would do it all day long.
This is Web Piano Teacher. This is exactly how he works. Yeah.
So it kind of an insight of what I would be doing later. And I would just write the name because I couldn't read the notes. So I would just write. I don't even remember what I wrote to tell what the note was, but I had my own little thing of what the note would be. And so that's kind of what I did, transcribing, listening, and then writing, which what I would be doing later. But, fast forward, I'm teaching piano lessons. All right, because everybody who does music has taught lessons at some time or another to make ends meet, So, and, most of the time, anybody who's taught lessons knows this. The kids aren't going to practice. They just aren't going to. And their experience is not going to be what mine was. Okay. That was my biggest thing.
I don't think a lot of teachers know that, actually.
Yeah. And even anybody who's a teacher is going to have some level of talent, probably over average the kids that they're going to be teaching. Yeah. And so they don't realize that the kids' experience is not going to be theirs because you think you're going to teach them, the way you went, and it's not going to be that way. And so I'm teaching, got the books, I'm teaching the kids And I'm a pretty good teacher, I think, but they just don't practice and they get bored and quit, which is what happens to 99% of everyone who takes music lessons,
We could not afford to have people quit.
And it was just, they didn't have a problem with me. It was just that they were bored with it. Sure. I was doing the traditional books that you always use. And I started this thing where I would spend most of the lessons with the kids playing the stuff they had already played.
Okay.
Because normally you learn, okay, done with that, go to the next song. Okay, learn it, got it, perfect, go with that. Perfection, throw it away, go to something else. But instead of doing that, I would have the kids spend 20 minutes playing the songs that they had already learned so they didn't forget them and not expecting perfection.
Okay.
Just, get through it, kind of be pretty good with it. And they started getting pretty good.
Really?
Yeah. And they could get to where they could play for half an hour, just new songs one after the other, several books. And it amazed me that they never practiced during the whole week, but they had this amount of recollection where they could play, just from doing it a little bit once they learned it. And then we'd spend a little bit of time on the new song till they finally got it, and then we'd add it. We'd stack it on top, So they started just really improving. And I was able to keep the students more anyway,
keep the paycheck
because
going.
they were happier by not doing what was traditionally done, So that's
seems
kind
to be a theme of y'all's piano teacher
yeah,
business.
That's kind of one aspect.
How does everybody else do it? We're not going to do it that way.
So I kind of do that when I have my students today practice. I tell them, stop playing, trying to find something that's going to challenge you and make you better. Play a ton of easy stuff, and then play it all the time. There's a lot of great songs that just go dun 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 on the piano, right? A lot of songs do that. Play those songs and play them over and over and play them every day. So for some reason, doing something you're familiar with, it's like, with the Bible, we've read it, but you go back and there's something deeper that you never got every time, right? Every time you go back to it. Same with music. So I didn't realize what I was doing. I was applying kind of, biblical things, ways of learning, line upon line, precept upon precept, right? But you do that line again, you do that precept again, you keep going back, playing the stuff you already know, finding something deeper within it, then you become a better musician. Not just better at this one song, you become a better musician. So that's why almost 20 years later, I have people that don't use my website anymore because they're so good. They have their own band and they write their own music and they don't need me. Well, good. It takes two decades, but so that was one aspect. That was a breakthrough for me. Is not one song perfection. Next song perfection. That's boring and it's discouraging. So I kept with that, but then we even had what was frustrating. You don't get that many talented kids when you teach. You get a few. I've had maybe 3 in the whole 20 years that I taught. And then I had others but I had 3 really good ones. And they were on the verge of quitting. And I'm talking about talent. I'm talking about their musical talent. They could not read music to save their lives. They wouldn't practice.
And you didn't teach like 100. You taught thousands of kids.
Well, it's more like hundreds, but I kept them.
Yeah.
It would have been thousands had I had a high turnover rate, but I didn't have a high turnover. Usually it got to where if someone quit, it's because I didn't want to drive to their house or I didn't want to take my shoes off anymore. Going in their house. I quit their house one time because of that. I was a young man anyway. So, yeah.
My point is you had a lot of students. You didn't just like see a few.
Every week I saw a lot, but it was hundreds instead of thousands because...
I got the ones when I started teaching piano lessons for him. I got the ones that he didn't want to go to because I was like, I'm so desperate for cash in college. Whatever. Yeah. I'll take my shoes off.
I taught her to do it the way that I did it, and she pretty much taught herself how to play.
Really?
Yeah. So she could really be a good narrator if she had ever had that.
And it's before y'all were married, or this early years.
Okay. If we could attach a treadmill or if there could be some kind of stationary music situation, I might consider. I just.
Yeah. So I had these kids that are super talented, and I had 2 of them at the same time actually, but they're going to quit because they can't read music, and they're getting so good that you're not happy with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. You want to play something cool.
They could memorize the stuff.
Yeah, but their reading was so horrible that it took them forever to get one measure learned. Now the reason they were, and I finally this dawned on me one day why because it was the same reason my reading was so horrible my whole life. Because their ear is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if your ear is really, really good, you can your mind and your body's going to do what's easiest automatically. You're going to go to that, whatever the easy thing is. So if you hear it and you know what it is, you don't have to read the music. You just copy your piano teacher, or you memorize, right? And so that's the way you learn. And if you start off that from day one and that's what you're doing, and you keep doing that, eventually the load's going to get so heavy that you can get by, but then the music just gets so hard you can't even get by anymore. So their reading was so terrible because their ears were bad. Now I was trying to get them to read a lot of easy music to make their reading better, but they wouldn't do it. Had they followed my instruction, it would have helped them tremendously. But they weren't going to do it. They only wanted to have fun and play stuff they wanted when I got there.
I mean, what were they, like 13, 14?
Yeah. And then, their parents were going to make them practice. And, I understood that. So I thought, well, what can I do? Because they're going to quit. So I just said, what's your favorite song? What do you like? And one of the kids, there's an Elton John song he liked. And what was it? I think it was Leave On. I don't know how they ever heard it.
Their parents, I'm sure.
I guess. So I listened to it right there in the lesson, and I just wrote down the letters instead of the notes. No note reading. And they would just eat it up. They could just do it. They just learned it. And I would write a little more. Every week I'd come back and they'd have it memorized and they'd do more. And they got to where they could read that system way better than they could read regular music notation. And that's all I would do is I would come, and I would even use lesson time to listen and write it down because that's my time,
You're on the clock.
And I'm right. And so I just started doing that for them. And they got where they just had these sheets with just all these letter scratches on them. And I got it where I would put a line in the middle and put the right hand on top, left hand on the bottom, like music notation. And if the note was long, they weren't holding it long enough, so I'd put a dash. You need to hold this one, so I put a dash. Or this one's faster, so I put, eighth notes have the beam, so I'd put one beam. 16th notes are twice fast, I'd put two beams or two curved lines, whatever. So that's kind of how that developed.
Wow.
Okay?
So the whiteboard method or the cheat notate,
that's
that
kind of
evolved.
where it was born. And it was from these kids that needed something so I could hold on to them and not, be out that money.
But also,
I cared about them.
Yeah.
I wanted them to learn. And I was excited. And their parents, I thought the parents would be like, oh, this is,
Elton
you
John.
should do this. No, or they need to learn to read music. They didn't. They just wanted them to be able to play. They not to be able to think, it's great skill to be able to read music. It's a wonderful skill. But it's just man's invention of how to do it. It's not, and it shouldn't be the only way. If someone can learn a different way, why can't they learn that way and enjoy it? It's for enjoyment anyway, right?
Right.
We're not doing it so that we can say, oh, I can read music now. I've reached this level.
I know.
Because those people don't play the piano anymore.
If a kid is dyslexic, we're not going to be like, and they need other tools to help them learn to read. Right. We're not going to be like, we're sorry, you just don't get to learn to read.
This is your one way.
So they learned a different way.
Yeah.
And it was most effective with the kids who were the most talented that wouldn't practice. Because their ear is so strong, it fights against the reading. Some of the best music readers I've ever known don't even know what chords they're playing because they're robotic on the skill and it's a great skill. They can just read anything, but because their ear is not that good, so they have to do so that skill becomes stronger because that's what they can do. But if your ear is really strong, you're going to want to use that. Now my dream would have been for them to read music and use that, but they weren't going to.
The reality, they're like 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
What?
The reality was either I do this or they're not going to play. Well, both those people still play. To this day, I see them on Instagram. They are still playing. But fast forward, I'm not doing that for all the kids, but for the ones who want to do it. When you teach lessons, some are just a paycheck. You have fun, hang out with them and all that. But so a kid comes over, and I'm teaching a guitar lesson, and he's I still remember his name, Chase. I won't say his last name, I guess here, but you remember him? Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah. He goes,
this was a day I can remember a whole lot about that moment because I'm like, I think this day really changed the trajectory of our whole life. And we were searching because we had two small children at the time, our two oldest, and we were like I was looking ahead thinking they're going to start school. Well, they'll be at school till 3:30, and we go to work every day at 3:30 till 8 o'clock. And then they're going to go to bed. Like, what are we going to do? We're never going to see our kids. Right. We have to come up with a solution. And we just weren't.
Yeah. So, and God has a way of just having something come in, and you never even know it till you look back and go, that was that one catalytic moment that changed everything, the catalyst. So he's there, and he goes, oh, I got to show you this video. This is before iPhones and iPads, years before that.
Again, he's probably 13.
Yeah. And so she has this little laptop, and he goes to this site called YouTube.
It's a new site.
And this was 2006 or 7, something like that.
Yeah, I think it started at 6.
I think it was 6 because we were a very low-tech family. Yeah. We had like this one laptop I had leftover ancient from college. We didn't have cell phones. Mm-hmm. I didn't have an email address. We had just given up everything. He
goes to YouTube and he finds this video of this overweight woman, and she's riding a motorcycle, and she hits a hill and she flips over. She's okay, but she flips over, and he just thinks it's hilarious, So he's showing me this video. I'm like, what is this? How did this get on here? Because there was no social media at that time. Yeah. Well, that was, but we didn't know it. And he's like, well, people can just upload videos there. And so I was like, oh. So I started looking around, and I saw there were immediately, is there music lessons?
I think he had learned something too on YouTube and showed you what he learned or something on guitar.
I can't. I just remember the motor.
I do remember that was I remember clearly.
But there was a guy on there that did guitar, and there were a few people trying to do some piano stuff, but just homemade videos. So I thought, I don't know, I just had that desire to try it, and I made a decision right there. Am I going to do notes, or am I going to do, the whiteboard thing? And I thought, I bet there's a lot of people out there who had. This is one of those wise moments. That I'm
Thank you, Lord.
You know what? I know there are a lot of people out there who take music lessons and they failed.
Yeah. And you only knew that because you taught so many kids.
That's right. That's right, because I've experienced it, and I know how how it works. And I thought, that want to play, they love music, but they struggle, they can't read music. So I'm just going to do it this way, because you don't have to have any prior knowledge to do this. You can just sit down, So I got a whiteboard, and a
literal whiteboard,
and I took the frame of it off, because they had those metal frame on the outside, and those are very sharp.
Yes, they are.
And I've cut myself a few times on them. My kids have also cut themselves after they were told not to touch it.
Multiple times, don't touch it. Well,
Yeah. I got a marker. And so a lot of people on my website wonder why I used to go from bottom to top on the whiteboard. It's because I'm an upside down lefty. And if I wrote from top to bottom, I would erase everything with my hand. So I would go bottom to top because I write like that. And then later, once I got the digital, I went top to bottom. And I would think a lot of people would complain about that, but they don't. No one ever mentions it. But anyway, that's why I used to go bottom to top. I'd write it out just with black marker. And then I would, the analog, with the tape, the actual cassette tape. Hit record, and then had to have somebody come over and show me how to process the video so it could be small enough. Had to be under 100 megabytes to get on YouTube back then in less than 3 minutes. Couldn't be more than 3 minutes. I uploaded a few. People just immediately, took off. I mean, they just, everyone was watching them. And I even would go to other piano channels, and they would show you all their subscribers. They used to show you that. So I would just click on each one and then invite them to my channel. Hundreds, thousands a day, and I just spent all day doing that. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
And then who to your channel?
The other subscribers to the other piano channels, so that they would check, and it worked. I mean, now you get in trouble if you did that. You'd get.
Well, now you can advertise on their channel.
Yeah. I guess so.
Things have changed.
It's changed a lot. Yeah. It used to be whatever people liked that drove. That the ad thing changed everything. But it was really cool back then, those few years, because it was a really free, environment, and it was really cool. And in fact, I miss those days.
I do have to say, I'll admit, I was not on board.
Really?
No, until I started getting money for them, because I would advertise. I never put the whole thing. I'd put the part one.
Yeah, from the very beginning you did.
Yeah, and I'd say I'd make them, $5 a piece for the videos, and I would just send them links. I would make links.
Which makes sense because you were struggling. Y'all needed practice.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, the internet had been around a lot longer than 2005, but I think it was just the way you used the internet was really changing rapidly in those years. I mean, I would say 2002 beyond. And by 2005, we had already seen like things like Napster come and go, or, you'd already seen things come and go. And so I just wasn't real confident that this YouTube thing was going to be sustainable.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't even have a website. I was just selling the videos.
I was like
one
so
at a
mad
time.
because he works really hard. He just gets on something and it is like, it's like, I'm going to spend the next, it's not 24 hours. It's not 48 hours. I'm going to spend the next 7 days straight doing this one thing.
It's my greatest talent and my greatest fault,
Is your ability to focus and
to block out everything else and just get.
And we had two pretty challenging, like a newborn basically,
right.
and then a challenging toddler.
Right.
And
I
was like,
she was out working, and I would even, I got to where I wouldn't even stop the video if one of them needed a diaper change or was yelling, because I'd never get done, because my oldest one could sense that I was doing something important.
Well, I'll say I wasn't on board, and then you said until we started making money.
She saw the money.
We
saw the money.
What was
and
like it was so interesting. You were sending the video, subsequent parts through email for $5 a piece.
Yeah, per video. And they were paying.
And then
and
we
you were
also
manually individually
sending.
And I see now what the Lord was doing, because a lot of people go, "Oh, you were so innovative." I didn't have any foresight.
We literally did not know what we were doing.
No, the Lord put, back when I was a little kid and I did that. That was, a foreshadowing of it. And the kids I taught forming that method, that was all a progress, a thing. You can look back on your life and see the things the Lord has done. But He was creating a niche for me, because the people that are part of the website today, they can't learn any other way. It's the way that works for them.
Yeah.
And so I have, now you can pretty much get anything for free on YouTube because of all the ads. People put all their stuff out there. But from the very beginning, I never put all my content on YouTube. And a lot of people did that. And then, they kind of got the shaft when with the adpocalypse thing.
Yeah, what year was that?
I can't remember.
2008, probably, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Yeah, but
it was maybe a little before that.
I want to hear that story in a minute.
So I was so so popular growing up, going on YouTube, that I was even in the book YouTube for Dummies.
That's nuts.
I had that book somewhere. My mom has it. We bought copies, whatever. But
our moms were really excited about that.
And I was in, and this is when it was taken off. I mean, and I was one of the top. Like, you could look at the top channels. It wasn't just the top musical channel. It was one of the top channels. I'd put up a video and I'd have 30,000 views within a few minutes. That kind of thing. And then there began other piano things showing up. A lot of people were just kind of copying my videos or stealing or uploading them, pretending to be me, and doing that sort of thing. And then a lot of copiers. And then at one point, I think it was 2011, we had moved here. A lot of the channels just got deleted. They just canceled them. Right, some of them they left, and mine was one that got canceled, along with a lot of others. In fact, a lot of the top piano people on YouTube today used to email me about what they could do to get their views better, and I was kind of on terms. I don't know, but
those guys. Why did they delete your account?
I have no idea.
Oh, I have a theory, but
you do.
Mm-hmm.
What's your theory?
It involves a very famous musician from a very famous band who has since made it his life's work. Yeah, but others
had that. Others had his music too. Maybe mine was too popular though. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of my biggest hits. So we won't name names, but
I can't hardly listen to the
anyway,
band
who
anymore.
knows? But some of them got chopped and some of them didn't. Mine did. And I lost all of those links, all of the standing.
And you were one of the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know. So I started over. And
however, though, here's where it's like, we don't know what we're doing, and even then we were following the like prompting of the Lord, but it was always, every time we would evaluate, we don't know what we're doing, but like, what do we think is the best thing? It was, everything is going to push traffic to the website. We're just always going to push traffic to the website. And as the YouTube landscape and the social media landscape was, I mean, it was the Wild West. It was rapid growth, rapid change. Right. We would evaluate, what do we want to do? How do we want to navigate this? And it was, we just push to the website, to the website. Part 1, push to the website for the rest. So when the channel did get taken away, we had a website that had been established. We had members. People were already used to, everything was still continuously, even what did remain was pointing to the website. And then again, once people are in the system,
and here's the grace of God.
It works.
That first month that I got taken off, my income went way down for that 1 month. Then the next month, it jumped right back up to where it was and maintained. I have no idea how that happened. Though I have a theory too, but even though I had to re-upload everything, but once you do that, you've lost all your links and your standing, and I've never got close to getting that view count. And I've always felt like whatever the algorithm is, that I'm not, my type of thing is not, because I don't put everything out there for free. I'm like, go over here and spend money instead of.
We've had the same model since YouTube began.
So to me, it's amazing because you can find any piano lesson, multiple, for a complete song on YouTube on anything you want to do. But somehow I'm still able to make living doing my style and the way that I do it. And even the people that were copying what I'm doing, they've quit because now it's the Synthesia thing, which is the
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero style. But somehow we're still able to do pretty well with how we do it, the same old way.
You'd ask the question like, what are like the hard things about business? Through the years, and I'd say one of them is we don't know what we're doing when it comes to YouTube.
Not now.
Well, it's like, I want to say not now, but it is continually changing. The algorithms, the style of videos, is it long form, short form?
It's always changing.
The look, the feel, the hashtags, how people interact. It is constantly changing.
Right. You know what
and I think the challenge is that we see the change and we're late to see changes. Because again, we have this unique, like we have this one thing. Our business is not YouTube. We're not, I would not say we are YouTubers or Instagrammers or influencers. We have this one thing. And so we see changes late, and then we spend a lot of time evaluating, do we change? Do we play the game? And you alluded to this a minute ago. It seems like you said it seems like a lot of your life is seeing the direction
which that's one of your talents. What I'm so lacking in, you're very good at, and you see where things are headed. You research what's working, what's not, and so that's, I think, what you've done, video editing and vision, is really cool. So,
but we've decided to stay.
I don't know how much words mean, but
the course. And then it's like, there is something in me, and I think it's in you too. And I don't know if this is good or bad. It's probably a little both. At times, more good than bad, more bad than good. But it's like, I see the game, and I don't want to play it.
I know.
Right.
You're not going to control me. You're not going to control how I live my life.
This is what I hate. YouTube used to be a place where people went to learn something or watch, and they had attention spans. Now it's so moved to quick pleasure, to quick, move on, and the ads, and they've got to be working because everything's ads now. And there's no attention spans, and so there's probably fewer people actually wanting to learn to play an instrument because they can't sit there for 2 seconds to actually learn something, because their brains are being trained to be that way.
Interesting you say that. When I was in college, I was a film major, And we did this exercise where you'd snap every time the commercial would change a cut to a new shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about every 2 seconds back then. And you look at it now and it's like some of these Mr. Beast videos or whatever, it's so fast.
Yeah, it is. And you ever seen a sequence on a commercial or something where they show you like 100 pictures in a few seconds? You know?
Yeah.
Every one of those is stored in your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Though
crazy.
you didn't see them, they're in there. And they know that. You know, the
Eric has some theories about that.
Yeah. So even if you don't if
too.
you don't know what you just saw, you do in your
Yeah,
subconscious.
yeah.
It's in there, but it's just so quick that and it kind of it's sad for me because no one can sit long enough to really learn a skill that's worthwhile having. It's just entertainment and
And
a dopamine hit, you know.
I
It's
think and if you pull back, like all the things that are on their way out, that are about to be completely lost because we can't process it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I struggle with classical music. It's not my favorite thing. I don't understand it. I think anytime you've given me explanation behind it, oh, I like this.
Fascinating, yeah.
Yeah. But just like from a pleasure point, not a lot of it I don't love. Some of it I do. But I just think the ability to listen to that. I mean, people, even like us, in whatever 2002, we were going and buying all of these albums and spending hours listening from start to finish something. Nobody even buys an album. I mean, it's rare where it's like a big deal for an album release, and then you sit down and you listen to every single. I just think about the things if we don't sit down and listen to it, or we don't sit down and pay attention to it, does it disappear?
Yeah. Something I wanted to get to, how can I exist in this environment still? And I think one is for two reasons. One, that this system that I've come to invent with the kids I taught works for people when other things wouldn't work. Traditional music lessons wouldn't work for them. So this works for them.
Right.
Along with that method is the teaching, because you can't just have my sheet. You've got to have the teaching with it. And I think because I actually sat on the bench for 20 years with actual people,
Right.
that I have an instinct of what they're going to have trouble with, what they need to know.
Right.
And so a lot of the teachers on YouTube today, they haven't had that experience, so they don't know what a real person. I mean, yeah, they can play and they can show you, but they don't know the troubles and obstacles that people are going to come up against. That's one. And there's things that you get from a teacher that you'll never get from a digital thing, the Synthesia thing. You're just pretty much a robot, copying things. But what about expression? What about pedaling? What about phrasing? What about what chord you're on? None of that stuff. You can't learn, as far as I know, unless someone teaches it to you, an actual person. The other reason, the second one, is that I've always wanted to give people what they hear on the album. Let's say you grew up with an album, let's say Fleetwood Mac or a Billy Joel album or something.
Okay. You
grew up with, and you had your big giant headphones on, and you sat on your bed and listened to the whole album, which nobody does that anymore, but that's really cool if you have time to do that. You'll hear things you never heard. They want to play like their album. They don't want elevator music with the melody in the right hand. They want to play what Billy Joel played. They want to play what Elton John played.
Right.
So from the very beginning, I've always wanted to give people what they heard on the album. So I write what Billy Joel's playing. I don't simplify it and then put the melody in the right hand. I've done some things like that from time to time, but I want, and then so people will hire me. They want this version of something because Elton John really, knocks it out of the park.
They'll send you like a YouTube video of that recording
of
right?
this live version. So I'll listen to it, and the particular talents that I've been gifted with, from God, are for this. That's what they're for. They're not for my personal enjoyment or being famous, or they're for so that I have the skill that I can teach someone else what they want to learn, the ear part of it. So they'll send me a YouTube video and I'll listen to it and I'll transcribe it. I'll write it out. Sometimes you can't hear really good what's going on, so I have to say, well, this is how Elton does things, so I can fill in the blanks, because you can't hear every single thing. Sometimes they'll make a mistake, and I'll fix, a mistake that they made. But giving people what they hear instead of an elevator music type deal, because they
Yeah.
want to, because real musicians, they want to they want to be able to go out, if they ever could, and play on the stage, you know, what that piano player is doing.
Well, like that young man that was on y'all's video.
Yeah.
He's playing in the bar with his
Right.
uncle and all the
Yeah.
Exactly.
college girls.
Exactly.
But it's like, even if you don't go play on the stage, even if you really never make that happen, you're sharing in what that artist did on the stage. When these guys email Shawn and they want the live version of this song, whether their intention is ever to get up on stage, they were either at that concert or they've watched this live performance. When they play that, I just feel like they're sharing in with what the artist did up there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Whether you're actually doing it or not.
Yeah.
And I think too why you've lasted in this landscape is there are things when we talked about what we started distinguishing in all this great music, that you've got musicians, songwriters, storytellers,
Yeah.
the vocal artists, all of those people, they have a gift and a talent, and they do something that is based off of intuition. So no AI is ever going to pick up completely on an artist's intuition.
The soul. Yeah.
And I think because you're a human being and you've gotten to know these artists, we don't know Billy Joel, we don't know Elton John, but you know their music.
I kind of know them through their
And
music,
you
though.
know,
That's
you
interesting.
know a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say whatever their personality is for the way that these notes come out of their head, you know it.
Yeah. And there's some ways that kind of had developed out of the style that I teach with the whiteboard thing, that are more teachable that way than writing notes out. Like,
It's true.
let's say vamping. Let's say a lot of times when, these artists are playing, they're just chording.
So
beneath.
explain vamping real quick.
Vamping is kind of like marking time on a chord. You have
It's like drumming.
Yeah, you have a C chord for, a measure. Then you have an F chord for a measure. Then you have this. Well, I could watch Billy Joel and see every little single note he does and then write it down. And then you have to, look at that and try to put
Right.
everything in its place.
Right.
Or how about just learning the feel that he's doing? Because he's not doing that.
Right.
He's not going, oh, this little note goes here. He wouldn't even know what he did. What did you do in measure 33? I don't know.
I was feeling it.
Yeah. So you learn that style of vamping. There are things that are like riffing, and you learn how to riff instead of learning each individual note, because then you're not really learning how to do it. You're not learning how to do the skill. And the way that they use on the whiteboard lends itself to that teaching.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a lot of things in the method that help, especially in the pop rock style genre, that work better for you learning to play in that style than if you actually had all the notes
Because I
written
can't
out.
scientifically notate this person's feeling or intuition.
Right.
I mean, speaking of attention to detail, there's a Led Zeppelin song where Jimmy Page, if you're listening to it, he rushes.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, he
so
does.
noticeable.
Black Dog, he rushes.
He rushes. And the drum, they get kind of off, which I love so much about that.
I don't
just-
even care because they're playing
If
live.
we took that out, if we fixed it, if we corrected it and scientifically made it to where we could notate that on paper,
Auto tune.
something would be lost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you've listened to this album, Led Zeppelin 4, a million times, right?
The
Or
rushing is part of it for me
it's
now.
part of it. In fact, if I hear it and it's corrected, it's not correct. And so, and I'm like, the way they used to record albums back then was not like piecemeal. Was everybody in a room? That's why the mistake
Right.
is there, but the mistake is what makes
Yeah.
it
Let me give
what
you
it is.
an analogy.
Wow.
What if you were to say one thing that you're an expert in, or you really know what subject?
Don't be shy.
Video editing or what would you?
I would say pottery.
Okay, let's say pottery.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great. Why didn't I think of that? All right, pottery. Okay, let's say I'm going to write something out. Can you speak Spanish?
I used to before I learned
What's the language
Indonesian.
you can't speak? That you don't
Indonesian.
know? Oh, that you don't speak?
Oh, that I don't speak. Russian.
Okay, I write out everything you can know about pottery in Russian. Okay. Now, do you want to have someone phonetically teach you how to speak that, or do you want to actually learn the language so that you can know what it's saying?
I want to know what it's saying. Yeah.
Right. So that's the difference. That's the gap between someone who is just copying note for note and someone who knows how to do the skill. Yeah,
Wow.
as opposed to just being able to rattle off Russian and not having any idea what you just said. But, I know it's about pottery, but how about you speak Russian and then I can, and maybe I can just not even look at that, but I can just speak from the heart from Russian and tell you everything I know about pottery. That's how big the gap is between someone who's just copying note for note and someone who knows the skill of vamping. So I think that's one of the things that you get from a lesson in my videos.
Wow.
Because and that's just one thing.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things that you don't get, and people stick with me for decades for those sort of things. I think, and I think that's why we're able to still exist.
Wow.
And we could have shifted our model. I mean, we could easily entertain people. We don't. We're not naturally entertainers. I don't want to say we're not entertaining. We're not entertainers. I don't think that's our. We can do it, but it's just not our. It's not our thing.
Sure.
So we could have shifted to let's entertain people for 30 seconds. Oh, now let's entertain people for 15 seconds. Now let's entertain. But then I'm like, that's not our mission. That's not our goal.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to teach a man to fish, you know?
Yeah.
So we've reevaluated and there's loss there. I don't want to say loss. There's areas that don't grow and don't grow quickly or don't. And I think we've just settled in this, we're okay with that. And we've had experience after experience like that. The YouTube channel was lost. I mean, that was a scary day.
I bet.
Yeah, it was.
That was a scary, scary day.
I bet.
It was. Scary
And
a few months.
It was.
Year.
But income went down and then income went right back.
Yeah.
We can't explain it.
Hmm.
We've had years where we've made a decision, a personal decision that was going to cost us more money. And how are we going to do that? And then without really, none of our work actually changing, we got that amount of money that we needed. Then when we would make a decision, we don't need that amount of money anymore. We didn't make that much money. We didn't continue to make that much money. It's sort of this
it's like someone is
in charge.
Yeah.
And caring about us. I mean, but we're coming up on, what is it? Almost 18 years of this business.
Yep.
And other than we've upgraded our cameras. We've gone from a whiteboard to a digital, we have help with editing videos. But other than that, we really haven't. Every time we've tried to entertain, it's either not sustainable for us or it didn't move the meter.
Right.
Really at all.
Right.
So why keep doing it?
Yeah.
It's just this one thing that we've been doing the same from the beginning relatively it's just the one thing.
But we've always felt some way this would end up either being or allowing for a ministry of some sort,
Yeah.
Maybe it's already doing that because a lot of people will know that we're believers and write us emails and even call the website a ministry. I'm like, I don't. There's no
we're
sermons
teaching
on there.
Led Zeppelin and
Yeah. Which that's a point too, because I know for some people that get out of some dark places, they kind of swear off certain music, and I think that's great for them.
Yeah.
Maybe all rock, they need to just completely stay away from it for them, because maybe it was such a source of what activities they were into. But to me, and there's some dark music that I'll never go near.
Yeah.
Okay. But a lot of the the rock, the blues, it's fun stuff, and music is fun. For me, it's never been about the lyric. I don't try to go read the lyrics because I'm not paying attention to it anyway. Maybe if I did, I would feel convicted. But music is fun, and blues. God invented blues and rock and gospel blues music, and it's fun. And I find enjoyment in that, and I think enjoying music is a great thing. So for me personally, I'm not like, I'm not going to do that because they're not all Christians, Well, they're people that God loves and he made, and he gave them a talent, and they've created music, and that's from him. So I'm going to enjoy their music. I'm going to enjoy playing their music. I'm going to enjoy teaching other people to play their music.
Yeah, right.
And still go to church on Sunday and worship with, with Christian music.
Yeah.
So to me, I can even, worship while I'm playing an Elton John song. And I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the line there for me is, yes, there's some music I'll never go to, but it's not really one of those areas. We're all tempted in some areas, but that's not one of my, areas. And I think that there can be a healthy love and enjoyment of rock music in general.
Absolutely.
Without, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you don't swear off all movies. Maybe some people do, and that's good for them. But just because there's some really, really bad movies doesn't mean you're never going to watch any movies. It's kind of the same.
I just look at if we can go out in nature and decide everything in nature, the beauty of nature points to God, the creator, I'm like, the same should be with these gifts of talents that we've been given. I mean, I can't, the research, the things that I know about Elton John, his skill, his gift, it's like his story. It didn't develop. It just was there. Yeah. I mean, he has a story like 3 years old, and the gift was just there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't we worship a great God that gives good gifts, greater than we could ever think that we would even want or know how to receive? And it's a free gift.
Yeah.
He's not lording it over us. He's not threatening to take it away.
Or withholding it from
He's
someone.
not. It's like we have the choice to use our gift.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I can just...
Yeah.
But the gift that was given was freely given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just can't... It's like there's something in me that I have to listen to that gift. Because it's so amazing that it was given. And the manner in which it was given is the whole gospel. I mean, the manner in which it was given is just so wonderful to me.
And music is such an open door to for spiritual things. It really is. If you look anywhere in the Bible where there's worship, there's always music somehow with it. Sing songs,
Or if there's casting out demons. There's not always, but there's often that's going on in the Old Testament,
Yeah, yeah.
There's music stuff going on.
Music somehow is connected with that. And it's a way to kind of bypass a lot of stuff that gets in the way, and you just get to the song. Because all these songs are about love. They really are all.
Well, so much secular music to me does a better job of pointing out our true heart's desire than a lot of Christian music, because it just shows you what the soul is hungry for.
And it's so easy to be teaching one of these songs and then just say a little something about what Jesus did for us or whatever. It just kind of bypasses all the mess that kind of our barriers.
Yeah.
I just love it.
I had a close friend in college, and I was in the art department, and he was in the music composition department, and we would often go and talk and share stories and talk about because the movement's always coincided across all the different disciplines. And I remember being so jealous because music had so much power to move people. Where visual arts, you'd like have a Rothko or whatever on the wall, and it's like, yeah, there might be some weirdos that would go and sit at the Rothko chapel and like have an experience with the Lord, but in general, music had so much
as a far reach.
Yeah. It's crazy. And then image and music was like, wow, that's kind of next level in some ways, but music, there's something spiritual about it.
Definitely. So that's been our hope, that we've always thought it would either fund some, thing that we would be able to do ministry-wise, or itself would be a ministry or something. And maybe it already is. Maybe there's something the Lord has on the horizon. So if anybody's watching this and wants to pray for us, because you've dedicated a lot of your time for free, helping.
Well, I love what's going on at Web Piano Teacher, and I love what God's doing.
Right. So we're very appreciative of your skills, your talents, the gifts that you've given. And so, if anybody's watching and wants to, pray for that and for direction and whatever level of success, because we want it all to be for eternal treasure, somehow. And money is always kind of a necessary thing whenever you take. It's part of, it's not. It's necessary. It's part of things. It's not the main thing, but it helps. And if there's We've kind of dedicated, or we have dedicated ourselves to being the best stewards we can, if we get that sort of level of success. So we're, if anybody wants to join in on us with that endeavor and in the Lord's timing, of course.
It's always interesting to me, we've had this like internet-based thing. And there's always the Web Piano Teacher community, the people we email with or whatever. It's real. That's a real community. It's a real way of interaction. But I don't think that's how we're intrinsically designed to interact with each other and build community.
Yeah.
And so it's always been this desire of ours to have deeper and more meaningful Web Piano Teacher community. So we do love people and we love community, and music is like, we've always said that, learn, play, share. It is designed.
That's the tagline for
You work on it, you learn it, you work on it, and then you share it. I mean, when you look historically how music is used, it's experienced community together, so it's like we have this vision for what we want it to be. We have this language that we use. The ability to make it happen hasn't come yet in almost 18 years. We've had little glimpses of it, but I'm like, if I'm dreaming big, I want a Web Piano Teacher convention. And it's not about learning the music. Yeah. It's about being around music and community. And whatever, it's like I don't even really have an expectation there other than I know it would be important.
Well, this idea of gather together has been on y'all's hearts for a while, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Where did that come from?
Her.
I'd say when we lost the YouTube channel, and we're always like, outside of Web Piano Teacher, Lord, use us. Like, just however you want to, what do you want to do? And I'm always thinking of ideas and strategies and what can we do. So we've kind of like thought about things and then just not either executed or not been able to, or life, Yeah. But the Lord put this idea in my heart, and it was like, call it Gather Together. And the thing that we thought about didn't happen, but that phrase it's like, no, this is still going to happen. Whatever this Gather Together thing is still going to happen. So when we kind of revamped the website, 4 years ago now, and kind of reevaluated how we were going to do things, how we wanted to present things, we added that tagline, Gather Together, to the website. And it has taken different forms here and there. But it's just like, I don't know, it feels like this promise that we've received that we will get to gather together with people around this Web Piano Teacher idea. It's always fun to dream and think about what that could look like and what that could be like. And there's no plan. So yes, if people want to join us in prayer for direction.
Yeah. Right. To me, it's a principle. The enemy scatters.
Yeah.
Right.
God gathers, because there's strength. There's more power. There's more strength. There's more opportunity for happiness and joy and sustainability and success when like-minded people come together, whatever they're like-minded
in that thing. Yes.
Right. So that's true in music. And that's true in maybe the days ahead that are coming. And some of you know what we're talking about. Being able to not be by yourself, but to be with in everything. So A lot of my teaching lately, and when I say lately, I mean the last decade, has been on kind of biblical principles, on how your walk with the Lord and however that works. If you figure that out, you can always apply it to every other aspect of learning on whatever you're doing. Pottery, music, line upon line, precept on precept works on anything you put your mind to, if you'll do it. So to me, it's just a way of, if you can learn it, and sometimes it's the other way. If you can learn how to do it in music, then you go, oh, wait, this will work in my spiritual life too. You gather, it doesn't mean you all agree on everything or everything's easy, but there's more power and more opportunity for the Lord to work in that gathering when people are together. And I found that a lot of what piano teacher clientele are believers, or maybe on the fence, or maybe leaning that way. And I feel like the message translates. It can go from music to eternity, because we only got a few years, right? I'm 50. I got a few years left, right? And anybody else on this planet, even if you're 20, you only got a few years,
right.
Really. I'll tell you. So there's an eternity, right? And music, the lessons we can learn in there translate to return, because I think that's the way the Lord made it. Everything's connected. Everything can be good. Everything, I don't mean, sin or anything, but I mean, every activity that is pleasurable, the Lord had an original intention for it to be enjoyed. And when we're gathering around these things, music, gardening, sustainability, whatever, we have more strength and more ability for success when we're not alone.
He likes community.
Yeah, which is hard, because some of us are, kind of homebodies like me. But anyway, it's still a true principle, because God's a community God.
Yeah, he's into it.
Yeah,
that'd be a dream of mine, to take this community we built online and somehow translate it into real life.
Real relationships where you're looking people in the eyes.
Yeah. Same, maintaining I don't want to do away with the internet and web piano teachers' existence on it. That sustains us, financially. But I still in 18 years, haven't quite figured out how to pull the gather together into the
community.
Real world.
Yeah. So we keep testing waters and praying, and it could be that he's already doing it and has done it, or there may be something.
In nearly 18 years, the Lord I've been less concerned with the timeline. So I just always am I'm just believing this gather together phrase. I'm just believing, X, Y, and Z. And I'm not concerned with the timeline. Because I think if you're trusting him and trusting his promises,
it's
going to work out.
And look how many times God makes a promise and then it's late when he actually brings it to pass. Abraham, the whoever the guy's name was that held baby Jesus, what's his name? Simeon. Yeah. Late, time and time again, late.
Yeah.
But
I'm just kind of willing to live my whole life knowing that gather together is going to happen.
Yeah. And probably when he fully embraced that is when he'll do it. I don't know.
So if I'm old and my last breath is gather together.
Yeah.
You just somebody put it on the internet, record it. So
I love it. Well, awesome. I think that's a good place to stop.
Okay. Good. Yeah.